Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about AI. We've got two very special guests with us, Jazz and Pradeep, who are here to talk about AI business, and we're going to talk about some real practical ways that we can start using AI, start thinking about AI. Where the rubber meets the road, because we've all heard the hype, but what is it going to actually do for me? How much is this going to cost? And, we all think there's an opportunity here, but what does that actually look like? So, yeah. That's our topic today. So we do some quick introductions. Jazz, your slide happens to be first.
Right on.
But yeah, do you want to maybe do a quick bio introduction of yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Jazz Pabla, born and raised in Kelowna. Currently do live in Kelowna as well. I work in the public sector. Have had the privilege of doing AI and machine learning work amongst other aspects of IT for the past couple of years, and then ever since this new sort of evolution of AI that's come out now, the generative AI. We were one of the first organizations in Canada to be given sort of privileged access through Microsoft in our data centers, in our cloud data centers for some of these AI solutions. And we're going to talk a little bit about them today in detail. Some of them you'll start to see just within your experience in the public sector. But one of the other items that we've seen in just working with Pradeep is how effective this is also in all sectors of the marketplace. And so, yeah, just excited to be here and talk about some possible solutions.
That's awesome. So it's neat that, the rest of us are, this is all new and that sort of thing. And you've had sort of privileged access to this stuff all along the way. So for you, this is old hat, and it's like, oh, we've done this in the past. And you can talk about everything you have done with it, as opposed to the rest of us that are, in the public domain that don't have the privileged access. So that's great to have you on. Thank you very much. Pradeep, the next slide is about you. So why don't you do a little intro?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. And I see a few familiar faces here. I see Tim just popped up. Hey, Tim. So my name is Pradeep Sangha. Jazz and I are co-founders of an organization called Jealous AI. And we started that earlier this year to really help organizations implement technology. So not just AI, but technology more effectively to enhance and basically be the catalyst for their strategy. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business strategist. I've been working with business owners and executive teams for a very long time and have businesses of my own. But my passion is serving other business leaders. And the role that I play in with Jealous AI and working with Jazz is the expertise when it comes to technology. I have you could say the business strategy side. So it's really how do businesses and business leaders implement technology more effectively and use it to enhance their business. Because right now what we're seeing when it comes to the conversation of AI, there is a lot of resistance. There's a lot of hype, but a lot of that hype is, I'm just going to say, fluff. And so today, hoping we can get into some of the conversations, working through that fluff to talk about what AI really is and the true potential there and the opportunities.
That's awesome. So the real practical nature of this is how do we use it? Because we all have to run our businesses. We can't spend all of our time on this. So we've got limited time and resources to be able to use it. So, what is it going to do for me today? So, excited to have you here. Thank you very much. So we've got, the tech expertise and the business expertise so that we can put those together and hopefully get something, practical out of it. So this is meant to be interactive. So, we're going to do sort of a panel back and forth discussion sort of thing, but it's meant to be so you can bring your questions and ask and give us use cases, challenge us about where, in your industry, in your vertical. We can talk about some of the verticals, but how have you maybe seen other people use AI, or what are your questions about it? Or if you've got do you think AI could help me with this? That kind of problem. So yeah, ask us anything. Here we are. Okay, so we'll start off a little bit with you know, what is AI? It's kind of like asking what's marketing, or like what's, what is the web, right? It's a giant open-ended question. But yeah, I mean, Jazz, can we start with you? Do you want to maybe
Sure.
just give us your, how do you answer this question when people ask you?
Yeah, so there's AI is massive if you think about it. It is the ability for a computer to do some sort of level of computation to give you a set result. The AI that I think people worry about is one that has a mind of its own and is able to do things without being prompted to do. So the AI that is sort of making all the waves right now is not that at all. It is what they call generative AI. And so its ability, and I like to kind of synthesize it into three categories: the ability to summarize content. So you've got large contracts, leasing agreements, large amount of text that you use as reference to be able to train it against large text and ask it questions or ask it scenario type questions, just to help you understand maybe what some of the processes you have, or if you're just looking for answers. The other one is creating content. So I want to write an email, or I want to write a report, or I want to write an executive summary or a sales pitch, or whatever sort of documentation you create, contracts, lease agreements, whatever it may be. You can base that content creation against a larger piece of text as a reference guide, and it creates you text and content. So you see a lot of marketing firms now starting to probably use it. I know that organization that I work for full time, and I want to be transparent here. I am on my own time. I am not on taxpayer time right now, so I am taking time off for this just to talk about AI. But the organization that I work for, we use it for as simple as things as writing social media posts, or writing news releases, or writing 80% of a news release, and then adding, the 20% of the human factor to it. You're not looking to replace a human. You're essentially looking at that quote unquote co-pilot experience, where how can you help somebody move forward? So that's the other category, created content. And the last one, which is probably the one that's going to take the slower uptake, is just pure automation. How can it read something and say, okay, I've read this and I understand it to be this, and I want to action that? That is sort of tail end, but the ability to do that is now here. And we are seeing some small use cases where we've seen some success in that. And so that, in a nutshell, is what the AI sort of fuss or the noise is about right now. There is this fear of, the Terminator movies and things like that. We have heard nothing or seen nothing. I will say this AI is great. It does great work. It's smart, but it's absolutely not that smart. It still gets some things wrong, just like a human does. And the things that our minds start saying, oh, AI should do that, so we ask it to do that, and it doesn't achieve that. The intelligence isn't quite there, but the growth rate of this AI is absolutely phenomenal. So one day it will get there. But it's an exciting time because there's a lot of good in AI that can help society. There will be some bad. And just like anything great, there's always some bad. I think Facebook had all the good intentions of the world, and you can see where it's got good. It's able to connect people. You see the bad side of it as well. AI will have the same effects to society, I believe. So let's see, that's kind of where AI is right now.
Right on. Yeah, there's certainly a huge amount of potential. I think it's the fastest growing technology that the human race has ever seen. It's just as big as the Industrial Revolution or the computer, or even larger than that. I think there'll be, when we look back in time, when history looks back on this will be an inflection point where the invention of AI changed everything eventually. And
I do want to add, though, I think the hurdle right now, it's its application to the working world. I think you're seeing a lot of party tricks with AI, where you can take a photo and recreate a photo, or one-off things you can ask ChatGPT to do. And there's some people that are using it, and we'll talk about the privacy implications of that. But I think once corporations start to embed it a little bit more, I think you're right, it'll start to take off. And once it starts to learn data within your environment and it knows who you are, it starts to create better and better content. And so there will be some good, and just like anything good, there will obviously be something not so good with it. So
Pretty, what do you think about the business adoption of AI and the, you know, do you think people are going to flock to it? Do you think it's so much hype? Like, because it's all over the news and everyone's talking about it. There was this cartoon that I had up on a webinar a couple times ago where it was like, we don't know anything about this, but we know we have to use it.
I think it is going to be adopted. I don't know if it's going to be adopted as fast as people think it's going to be in the business world. And we can just talk about this from example. Jazz and I have conversations weekly with organizations that want to talk about AI or implement AI. So we're talking to new businesses all the time, but they are confused. They don't know where to start. They don't even know what AI really is and how it can help them. They just want to talk about it a little bit. And even when we present something to them, our approach is never to go in and say, here's what AI can do for you. It's really taking a look at, where is your business at? Where are you trying to take your business? What is your strategy and your roadmap? And what are the elements that you need to achieve to be able to get there? And how can technology, and specifically AI, help you do that? So I think people are not understanding that. People think that there's cookie cutter solutions out there that are going to make their business transformational overnight. I don't think that's going to happen yet, but Jazz can talk to this element, I think, more appropriately, because he has that tech expertise. Is you have some of these larger software platforms, and maybe even some of the smaller ones, because they're a little bit more nimble, they will be integrating AI into their solution, right? Like the Microsoft. Jazz can talk about that all day long. So if we are using a platform, be prepared that that platform at some point in time, if the vendor is going to stay in business, they will be implementing AI into that. They have to have that as a core part of their offering at some point. So just pay attention to that if you're using software already. But where AI, I think, can be really helpful right now is to be able to enhance your strategy. I personally think that if you start taking a look at AI today and start having a strategy, put the systems in place, build the right talent in your organization to be able to leverage it when it really goes full force, you're going to have like a 5, 10, 15-year lead ahead of other organizations. So that's where I see AI going.
That's a good point, is that, you know, we're on this webinar today because we're exploring that to sort of build the chops for knowing what AI is and how you could use it, so that when it hits the ground running, that you're ready and you have the people in your organization that understand it a little bit more and know it a little bit more. And when you do that, I think it allows you to spot where you could use it, right? Like I feel like we've got a hammer and we're looking for nails, right? And the approach you're taking is to say, you know, what are you trying to build, right? What is the house? Let's make some plans. Let's make some, and then I might need a hammer to build the house. And AI is a useful tool in that. But I think a lot of it right now is like, I have a hammer, I have this AI thing, and I'm looking for something to do with it, right? I think it's cool. I've never had a hammer before. There's a particularly useful hammer, I think. So I want to find some way to use it, sort of thing. But your approach is I think, to you know, what is the house you're building, and can I use a hammer? And I think a hammer might be useful, but let's figure out what the house is and what the plans are, and, you know, maybe we want to build an addition or dig a foundation or something. I think we have our first question. Tim, go ahead.
So on your analogy, Leslie, it makes me think, what's different about AI versus Google? Because if I say, I Google something, say, show me some house plans, and you'll get a whole variety of things, right? So what's really different in that sense of what AI is going to do versus what Google does? Or, you know, that's one quick analogy. And the other one I was thinking yesterday, this was a conversation on a meeting yesterday, was I want to embrace AI to the full extent and how to use it, but I'm using it more like to help write articles. So to write an article, I'll say it's kind of like, as opposed to me having to look up the information, I can go to Google, find the information, then I have to cut and paste it. And then if I go to AI, it just writes the whole article and I just take it, move it over, and then just add the personal touch like Jazz says or Pradeep says. So I guess that's part of what's different about AI versus when you go to Google. To me, it's like going from the era when you used to go to, some people would know this, but you'd have to go to the library and look up in a dictionary, right? You actually open the pages, write all that information out or photocopy it, and that's how you do it. Now it's all high tech, right?
What's a library? What is that again? Yeah, no, that's a good point. Is that new technology comes out every day, right? I mean, our cars get over-the-air updates now. What's so different about this one? Jazz, what do you think?
Well, the difference about this one is for it to understand tone, empathy, how you're feeling, and try to interpret that and repeat that back to you. And so when you look at Google and you type in something like, well, here's an example. I'm looking for potentially a bigger SUV. We got 3 kids and we just need bigger space. And so on Google, traditionally I would go as like, okay, what's a 7-seat SUV? And then I would go and read the articles and stuff. Well, this time I went to Bing, which is the Microsoft version of the search engine that has GPT built in. And I said, make me a list of 7 SUVs by fuelage or for mileage and organize it by price. And it makes a table and it lists them all. So let's go ahead and read all that content and create me content for me to understand it better without me having to read every single article about it. That's the difference. You're not doing the reading and summarizing, it's doing it for you. You do have to have a level of trust in it, but the efficiency gains you gain with that, there's a little bit of a trade-off there. And so that's where from the everyday life, it's a little bit different. You are trusting this thing to summarize something for you, just like you're trusting the internet to give you some factual information. And so where it comes from is also important as well. And that's where I think some of the news articles, when you ask it something, it gives you something wrong. Well, that's going to happen. The reason that's going to happen is that there's wrong information on the internet. And so it's referencing wrong stuff. I want to say, though, what we're going to talk about as we sort of move forward here is the AI that we're using is not that. The AI we're using only has reference to your corporate data. So it's in a box, doesn't have the ability to go to Google and come up with an answer. It only knows what you give it. And that's the power of AI in the corporate world or in the small business world, where you're going to see is if you got a lot of data that's there, instead of it looking at that and then maybe looking at everything else, it's only going to look at that with no frame of reference of anything else. I think that's the power that we're going to see moving forward. I do see a hand up, so I want to give Dan an opportunity here. Dan?
Yeah, and in the background here, I just did that live right here on Bing, your SUV search, right? So there you go, rank them by fuel economy and price. And that's something that we couldn't do until now. And all I did was go to bing.com/new to get that. So that is free and available to you right now. Yeah, Dan, go ahead. Sorry. Oh, I think you're muted. We can't hear you. Or you're not muted, but there's an issue with the microphone. Okay, so see if we can fix the microphone issue, and we'll come back to you. You can raise your hand again when you're ready. But yeah, so I just did it live right here on bing.com/new.
So is that considered AI technology then when you go to bing.com?
Yeah, bing.com/new to specifically use the new one with the AI chat feature built in. Like it's this interactive portion. Not all AI is like this, but Bing is and ChatGPT is, where it's asking for a prompt, right? So and then my next thing here, I can reference this, right? So I mean, somebody give me an idea. What's something I can filter this list by? How many have more than 200 horsepower or something? Can I ask it that?
How about decipher it with just give North American vehicles only?
let's talk about privacy, but I confirm that you have reviewed the privacy statement. That's important. Sorry. Which ones are made in North America?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So it gave me, yeah, 5 of them are made.
For everybody that's on the call here, that would have taken you at least 30 to 60 minutes to do that research by Google, right? That's what we're talking about summarizing. You've got a large amount of content, in this case, the entire World Wide Web, and to summarize. But I want to state that when you bring it into your corporation, it is just your data, not all of this as well. And so it's got quite a bit of power there.
Looks like Dan submitted his question as well.
Okay.
Chaz, I don't know if you can see that. This is actually a good one talking about the ethical policy as well.
Per reporting that the process around formal regulation of AI is very opaque. If that's true, are there risks premature drop in AI? Yeah, that's a very good question. There's going to be two parts to that, Dan. I had the privilege of working with provincial and federal government on this, along with Microsoft on the ethical AI side of things. So there's two approaches. When you're talking about what Leslie's showing you and the ChatGPT and all the AI tools out in the world, there's going to be strict regulations coming from the federal government on how those are available to Canadians, and it'll be every country's going to do this. We'll see where we sort of land on what data and information you can put up with it. So, for example, the ability for you to take your tax information. Here's a good one, which has your social insurance number and all your tax information. There will be some people that want to upload it and then potentially understand their taxes a little bit more. Putting that up to an AI that you don't control that's out there on the internet, well, your information is essentially at that point in their hands and essentially out into the world. So it's just no different than typing your social insurance number into Google. Once it's in there, though, it knows you searched it or you posted it online. It is that type of regulation that the Canadian government and the provincial governments are going to crack down on. There's going to be ethical and AI frameworks that organizations have to adopt when they start using AI for corporate purposes as well. There will be more control that organizations have within that since the data is within the corporation, but there'll be a balance of two types of moving forward. From what we've seen and where this is going, this isn't a holdup that we've seen to slow us down. And we've been told not to slow down either. And so we just continue to move forward. Some legislation will come in, but if you focus on corporate data and building things within in a corporate structure, you should be okay. It is going to be heavily regulated on the public use side of things. And that's just the fear of data getting in the hands of individuals that you may not want to get.
I think on that note, I think it's important. One of the things that we do take a look at with organizations is their ethical use. And so we actually help them structure that. So if you get ahead of the game, you're gonna be able to, I'm gonna say, avoid some of those challenges. It's actually a very smart way to start testing AI because there's so much angst around AI, particularly like the large organizations. It's around their data and their customer data. They do not want it to go out there. So if you go out and say the first place that we're going to start is with some kind of an ethical policy, an ethical framework, it gives people a little bit of ease, right? It gives employees ease because the ethical policy isn't just about how you use the data and the privacy element. It's also taking a look at your strategy as an organization. And Jazz and I had a really good conversation about this internally, about our organization, Jealous AI, and how we wanted to work with organizations. And we made the decision that we're not going to be working with organizations that say, hey, look, we are looking to implement AI because we want to get rid of 1,000 people in our workforce. Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to put our heads on the pillow and sleep okay. But we are willing to work with organizations that say, hey, look, we want to enable our team members, our staff, to have more capacity or redirect them into doing other things. So if you actually build that into your ethical framework, guess what? Now you also have employees that are not freaked out about using AI and not freaked out about losing their job. So that whole privacy and ethical framework I personally think that's a great way to start, because now you're having really good conversations about AI, what the possibilities are, and how your organization wants to use it mindfully, ethically, and in a safe way as well.
And you might have noticed I just put up on the screen, this is NIST, National Institute, this is out of the States, Standards of Technology. And NIST is famous for security framework. And then there's another organization called CIS as well. But yeah, they've got a framework right here that you can build on, right? I literally just downloaded this. It's free. You can search for it. That's all I did. And if you just search NIST and AI framework, you'll probably get to this page. And so, yeah, this is a security standards organization. They're famous for security standards, but they've also released ethical standards and adoption standards and framework around AI and how to use it. And all the big guys have this as well, right? Google has a clear document. Microsoft has documentation on you know, what their ethical arrangements are around it. And yeah, I think that's a very good point, because people are worried about, am I going to lose my job here, right? And so the change management, which that's one of the topics we want to talk about actually in our talk here, but the adoption of this can be very scary. So how do you manage that in an organization? So yeah, I think in terms of a regulatory, and then in the whole crazy big picture where you say, is this scary and that sort of stuff, my analogy is nuclear weapons. Like, this has the capability to be the most dangerous technology we've ever invented as a human race. And I think it needs that level of care. Ultimately, we're not there right now, but we should be thinking about those because of the speed that it's developing. It needs UN and international, treaties on how to use it and that sort of stuff. But you're right that we can't stop it. It's coming. It's a question of how we're going to use it, right? And who's going to regulate it and how. Yeah, there are definitely dangers, but the positives so much outweigh the negatives, right?
Hey, Leslie, we have a hand up. I just want to be respectful.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
No, he has his hand up for a minute.
Go ahead.
So is there a way to use AI like as almost, I think of it now like it could be like an assistant. So I upload a picture somewhere and I say, I want you to write me an article about why PandaPay is the best in the payment processing world. Like, has it got that capability, or am I just wishing too much?
No, it does. It 100% does. And maybe when Tim, we're going to go over some use cases. I'm going to go over that in detail as well. But the ability for you to reference a bit of document and then to say, write me a sales paper on and explaining to my customers why this product is superior. It has the ability to do that already.
And then just to comment on this quick slide, what about the stuff that you type in?
Yeah, maybe I can touch on this real quick. So just from a cyber, or just from a data privacy perspective, and Dan, I'm going to actually tackle your question within this answer here. If you're using ChatGPT or any of the online tools, great tools to use. I have a subscription to ChatGPT and ChatPDF, and I use it, but no personal information I put on there. It is very generic in what I want it to do, and then it just helps me build some content to finish the rest. Anything you put on to any of the online platforms that are not your own or not within an enterprise system that you procure, you are essentially putting your data out on the internet. So just be mindful of that. So if you wanted to use ChatGPT to write you or help you write, here's an example that's probably not relevant for anybody here, but I'll use it anyways. Writing a resume. If you wanted to help you write a resume, which is a super common thing to do, you should not put your address and your phone number and your name or anything in there. Just get it to write the things or rewrite it in wording that sounds a little bit more professional. That's the goal of it, is to help you build something 50, 60% of the way, but then to add your personal information on top on your own system. So Microsoft Word or Google, if you've got that going. That is my advice to everybody here. However, once you start getting AI into your corporation and you have these models and they know your data, it opens things up a little bit more. So, but for those right now, that's where it is right now. Now, the reference only, the question that Dan asked, if you go to ChatGPT right now and you go to the reference and it says, why is it 2021? Now, the one thing that people, they don't share, and I wish they would, is the organization that made it took 7 years to build ChatGPT. And the reason it took 7 years to build ChatGPT is it took 7 years for them to train ChatGPT on the entire internet. So if you think about all the content of the internet, they had to, the technical term is codify. They enter certain code in, they say this means that, and then they train the entire internet to build this model, which is why it's super smart, because it has the entire internet. But at some point they had to stop trying to teach it. And the year they stopped was 2021. And then so they can put a product out at the end of 2022. Now they're slowly starting to catch up here and there, but their goal is definitely not to add more content to that. The goal is just to find different ways to get it smarter. If you want to use ChatGPT with the current internet, you do what Leslie just showed you, is Bing, because that's got the current internet and it's able to search that. Really, its reference isn't for you to reference the internet. It's really to create some content that is as relevant as it knows. Now, if you've got more up-to-date relevant information, say you're in research or something, you have to bring that data in so it has a reference point. So that's the reason it's from 2021. It just takes forever to train the model on that. So that's part of the reason. So Leslie, I see you moved the slide, so I'm going to pass the floor back to you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's that discussion that you touched on a few times, but it's public versus private, right? Is it the stuff that you put into ChatGPT and Bing Chat that we just talked about is going to be public, and it's going to be like posting it on the internet, and the model could potentially take that data and learn from it, right? It made us accept the privacy agreement before using Bing too much there, right? Or at least popped up and said you should read it. But part of what that says is that it's going to be able to take anything and learn from it and make it public. So we should be very, very careful about, how our staff use it and what our policies are around it, right? Pradeep, do you want to comment on that? Should I just release ChatGPT to everybody in the organization and say, guys, go for it?
I think that really depends. I think there definitely needs to be a framework around that first. So just like any other technology, when the internet came out, for example, or people using their personal phones at work, it's probably going to happen, but you want to have some parameters around that. So I think that's just a common sense thing to do, is have parameters and understand what the ramifications are. If you are going to allow staff to use it, what kind of data can they input into it, or what kind of data is completely restricted. So I think you should be very, very clear before you allow staff to do that on work time in a work environment. Okay,
and I do want to be conscious of time. Can we quickly talk about bias and what that means? Oops, sorry, too many slides.
Yeah, so when I was talking about empathy and its ability to understand emotions, if you only give it one point of view, it's going to only reference that one point of view. So to Tim's point in the chat there, AI is only as good as what you put in. And so if you've got an organization with a large set of data that you want to do, you want to make sure that the data that you have doesn't have inherent bias built into it. So it doesn't give you the same, you're not living in this vacuum of content creation. Data governance is very important as well. That's one of the things Pradeep and I talk about with organizations as we meet them, is yes, the ethical framework is good, but the data, it's if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. If it's good in, and it's good out. And your data governance and your data strategy is important as well. And so just making sure your data is organized, it's tagged correctly, it's easy to search. Those things we were doing regardless of AI. Now it's even more important because the ability for it to you to chat with your data, yeah, is really important. So yeah, from an ethical point of view and from a bias point of view, you do want to be able to make sure that you do have some control into the bias, but that's what a good ethical framework actually does.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, so let's move into some rubber meets the road stuff. Microsoft Copilot, when's it coming out? When can I start using it?
Yeah.
What is it? What will it do?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So just a quick tip why I know so much. I'm on their corporate council for Microsoft Canada, and I do work with Microsoft worldwide on a lot of this AI stuff as well. Some stuff I can share, some I can't just because the NDA I'm on. But what Copilot is about is AI built into the Office suite. And that's one of the Copilots. There's several out there. The one that everybody keeps talking about is this particular one here. You're in Word, you're in PowerPoint, you're in Excel, Microsoft Teams, Outlook, OneNote, soon enough. The ability for an AI assistant. So you all remember Clippy in Microsoft, the little Clippy thing that would dance in the corner? Well, Clippy's back, but in a whole different way with a prompt that creates content for you. The ability for you to be in Word, reference your own data, and ask it to create content, for you to be in Excel, have a large Excel table, and ask it to compute, create graphs, chat with your data. That's coming down the road. It's already here in some world. And so all this AI that's going to be built in uses your data only. Super exciting stuff. I think it's going to change the way we work. The licensing from it, from what we've heard, is going to be a $30 a month per user additional fee. If you use it correctly, $30 is going to be a drop in the bucket from the efficiencies that you're going to gain. Just summarizing email alone is going to save people more than $30 a month. And that'll be able,
I think.
Yes, but they are working to make sure. No, it's from what I'm hearing. Yeah, I think it's still a little wishy-washy right now where Microsoft's going with that. But it could be $30 US. We haven't got the official pricing yet. It's only available right now in November 1st for organizations that have an enterprise agreement, more than 300 users, and there's one other catch. The general release through the Office 365 portal is going to be later in 2024. And so it's going to be a great tool. It's going to help some people in your organization, not everybody. But it's important to know who's working in this environment and what data are they using, so you can start to plan for it now.
And what's different about this versus ChatGPT or Bing is that this is going to have access to the stuff. So where are you storing your data right now? Likely OneDrive, SharePoint, right? Outlook emails, those types of things. So this is going to have access to that data, and you will not have to post it publicly in order to get the benefits. Because today you can't do that, right? Like a lawyer or whatever, we're all bound by various things. I can't post client data on ChatGPT, so kind of the tool is sort of useless to me because of that limit. Not useless, I can get it to do some content that I would post on the internet anyways, but the real power of it gets unlocked with tools like this because it doesn't have that privacy concern because it's already in my 365. And that's a real game changer, right?
And I just want to answer David's question here. Understand the output of AI model suffers when AI is trained on AI generated. Yeah, David, that's a good point. If you 2-3 years down the road, if you have a bunch of AI content you created without a human being touching it, it's only going to learn itself. So that's why when Pradeep and I talk about the ethical framework or how you use AI, it is not what we tell people is you use AI to create a percentage of the content, but not 100% of the content. The reason Microsoft calls this Copilot, it's intended to be a Copilot and not an autopilot. And so when you're using Copilot, it's super clear, and it actually puts in there that this is generated by AI. You should not, you should review and add it actually says that when you're using it. And so David's point is it's intended to be a solution that helps you be more efficient in your everyday life. And Microsoft's one. I know Google's got Google Duet. I believe that's coming out, or if that's not out already. And Apple will have one, and they'll all have one as well. I did miss Tim's question. When people say Chat GPT, what is the acronym? GPT, I believe, stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, I believe is the technical acronym. And it's just a generative model that creates it. ChatGPT is the retail version that you see online that everybody's using right now.
And you can Google ChatGPT. There's a website and there's a free version and then a paid version you can use. But can we just talk about the differences between, say, the general AI, like artificial intelligence, it's going to take over the world sort of thing, and then something like the specific sort of task-based AI that it's good at like one or two things in a limited scope, but it's if I use Copilot I can't ask it general questions, can I?
If you're in Copilot and you're creating a Word document and you say, what was the score of the Maple Leafs game, it has no reference to that whatsoever. So it doesn't go out to the internet. It only knows what it has access to. So when you're in Copilot, you'll see a little button, it'll say reference, you click reference, you give it a file, that's all it knows. But it's trained on, it's trained without content based on what it's learned over the internet. So it's quite complicated and confusing, and we won't get into the technicalities today, but it doesn't have a frame of reference when you're using the corporate version of AI in your environment.
So it's got access to your data and specifically can be good at that particular one task, but it is not a sentient being, and then if we talk about Google, Google's going to have Duet with Workspace, and sort of very similar with what's Google's AI on the back end.
It's called Bard. I've been working with Google directly on it as well. It is not anywhere near where the GPT or the Microsoft world is, so they're quite a ways ahead, but they'll catch up. And the reason they'll catch up is they've got all Google and YouTube data to train this model on, and so they've got access to stuff that probably other people don't. So you'll see if you're a Google Workspace shop and you use it, you're probably seeing a little bit of it now, but you'll see a version of it coming out in 2024.
For those of you on Google Workspace, you can trial this now. You can Google Duet, and you can sign up, and they do get back to you. We're starting to set up the trial for us. Copilot just isn't available yet, but I personally, I haven't actually used Google Duet or Copilot, and I'm very much looking forward to trying it and seeing what it can do. Google's pricing for Duet is the same, $30 a user. They're both going to be there. And as I say, as you said, like Amazon, Apple, they're all going to come out with their own stuff, right?
I will say this: it sounds like Amazon's going to partner with Microsoft. So I don't know how much of their own stuff they're going to come out with, but I know Apple will have their own. So if you have an iPhone right now, I would predict that within 2 years you will see AI within your iPhone as an assistant. And you're going to see Alexa and Siri and Google, the home assistants you have, get a lot more intelligent in the next couple of years.
Kind of cool and a little scary. So let's get down to some specifics. This is actually the last slide, and so I want to spend some time on use cases and where you use it, and in preparing for this, we talked a little bit about robotic process automation, and that years ago it was, we don't have to know what that is, but it wasn't AI, but it was to be able to train a computer to do things like that weren't straightforward tasks, because it would essentially do a macro or like record where you clicked on the screen, look in different regions, analyze the character. So you could show it an invoice and say, look in this quadrant for the subtotal. look in this quadrant for the taxes, look in this quadrant for the ship to, right, on an invoice. You'd have to train it to do that kind of stuff. And then once you did that, you could have it process invoices for you, right? And so you get a large amount of content and you can get some automation out of it, which was pretty cool. But you had to have a whole, like, your ROI on it, because the training and the setup was so expensive and so time consuming. You had to have a whole lot of efficiency. You know what I mean? If you're processing 100 invoices a month, there was no way it was going to be worth it. You have to be processing 100,000 invoices a month, and then it would be worth it to do something about it. Where you know, one of the things we talked about was that the ROI for AI has been brought down. Like, it's almost like we're releasing this kind of stuff to the masses because it was only available to people who were processing 100,000 documents a month, type of thing, because then it would be worth it for you. So, do you want to talk a little bit about use cases?
Yeah, so there's a couple there. I'll double down on the one you just said there. One of the use cases we've seen is the ability for AI to read invoices, sales orders, PDF form, and without telling it where the subtotal is or where the taxes are or the description, it just reads it and it just knows it. It knows what a description is, it knows what a tax is, it knows what a subtotal is, it knows what the final total is. And then we pull that data out of sales invoices or statements of work or whatever the financial document is. And then we essentially just put it into our ERP system or our financial system. And so to go from, you know, thousands a month to zero for humans to interact with, we can now repurpose those staff to do more meaningful work instead of, you know, data entry. That's just one of the examples. So you got large amounts of data. You want to understand what it does. You can structure it in a way so it does it all the time. Or to what we were talking about earlier with Tim, is you can present that data to you and then just ask it questions and on one-offs. And that's the other example we have. We have a very large OH&S team, so occupational health and safety, massive amounts of safety regulations from the province, from the feds, and whatever. Well, we just made an internal bot right in Teams, and so you can ask it questions like, "Oh, I'm going to climb a building with a ladder. What do I need to know?" And it just tells you all your safety precautions instantaneously, versus you going out and trying to read and do it. So it all depends on your process and what your everyday data entry looks like and how you sort of process information through your business. Once you sort of have an idea of what that is, there's going to be a space for AI to just make that more efficient. This allows you to be more flexible in your organization, allows you to do things maybe you haven't done before. The other one Pardeep and I have talked about a lot is using it to actually grow your business. Now you can take on more customers without necessarily having the same type of overhead you have with staff, and it's really hard to find people now on top of that. And so there's quite a bit of use cases on the vertical side. Every single type of business unit you may have in your organization, from finance to HR, procurement, contracts, operations, there's always going to be some use cases along the way. What's really interesting is finding the ones, and there's a lot of overlap, and kind of building on from there. Start small is what I recommend, but there's just so much opportunity. It all depends how you sort of work. Pradeep, I'm going to come to you real quick. When you have these processes, how are we talking to our people about making that a reality with AI? And it's funny because we just had a conversation this morning about that very topic as well.
Well, I think one of the ways to start is you take a look, because everybody seems to be overwhelmed with stuff. So what is the stuff that's bogging them down, and what are the stuff that they like to do, what they're good at doing, and what actually brings value to the organization? And so what you want to do is you want to enable your people to continue to do the things that they enjoy doing, and take away the stuff that actually bogs them down from actually adding value to your organization. When you do that, you have people automatically on board. So let's just say you have an employee that spends half their time doing administrative tasks, the other half the time doing the stuff that they like to do. Well, if you are able to help them get rid of that administrative stuff, they're automatically going to be on board. They're automatically going to be excited about using AI, because now they're going to be able to do that much more on the creative side. So I think the wave of, if I take a look at the future workforce outside of manual labor, right? Because I think that is still going to be required to a certain degree. And the reason why I say this is I just talked to someone who runs CVS in the small package delivery for CVS in the States. And if you know CVS, they're a massive, massive organization. And they were talking about how they're taking a look at a new startup that actually just got about $70 million in investment. And they are building the robots that you've seen in iRobot, the Will Smith movie. So they're doing that to help packaging companies because they can't find people to physically pick up boxes and stuff like that and package them and put them on crates and whatever it might be, right? Pallets. So that's where some of the manual labor is gonna go away. But we're still gonna need people doing manual labor. But the administrative tasks, like typing stuff in over and over again, I think with technology, that's gonna slowly start to dwindle away. Well, I shouldn't say slowly, rapidly. And so the age of the thinking workforce, the innovative workforce, the creative workforce is going to be very, very important. So start thinking about people on your team and enabling them to think more creatively by using AI, because you can now take away all of that stuff that's bogging them down and free up their mental capacity to add more value to your organization. And they'll be excited about that.
Do you think there's going to be a gold rush of, because Tim's question here is about, so how do I use it to grow my business? Do you think there's going to be a gold rush of companies that adopt AI faster than their competitors? And you talk about capacity, right? So that means that they'll be able to do more work with the same amount of people, right?
Absolutely.
Because we don't want to let people go. It's that you don't necessarily need to hire when hiring is maybe difficult, or hire for AI or something, but that it's do more with the current staff, right? And the organizations that are able to take advantage of AI, because eventually, like everything else, it'll just become a commodity that we'll all use and it'll just be like normal, right? But do you think there's going to be this gold rush period where those who get it first, those who understand it and apply it first, have a competitive advantage for a few years before everybody else catches up?
Absolutely, because there's a number of different use cases for AI that can help grow a business. A is capacity, right? So if you're doing a bunch of stuff today and you want to grow and you need more people as a result of that, well, AI can help you reduce that. So instead of adding, one additional person, you might need a part-time person, and you can use technology to supplement the rest. So from a growth perspective, yes. From a cost perspective, yes, you can grow bigger, faster with less cost using AI. But there's something that is even more important, and that is speed. So we have seen a massive change in the business environment over the last 15 to 20 years. Is before, companies on the Forbes list, the top top 500 or 50 or 100, they used to be on there for 20, 30 years. The average now is 7 years. So the environment is changing rapidly. So when it comes to business, one of the competitive advantages that you have is making decisions, or better decisions, faster. Because when you make better decisions faster, you have a competitive advantage. So AI can actually help you do that. It can actually help you decipher data faster so you can make decisions better or faster as well. So I think you're going to see a lot of people being able to get ahead and do things not only better, faster, and they're going to be able to have more capacity to do so as well.
And I was talking to somebody at a school event, anyways, but it was they sell products that, and I don't want to give away too much, but they sell products that are popular, that are trending, right? And so their business is based on predicting what people will want to buy next week or next month. And he said that they were using AI to analyze the text of TikTok videos. And they were just analyzing just reams and reams of TikTok videos via the text transcriptions of them. And then they were trying to get from that what was trending and what was popular, what's going to be popular, so they could make intelligent decisions on what they should carry in their inventory, and what's going to be, that's going to sell like hotcakes in the next 2 weeks, right? So I got to get out in front of it and get it into my stores now. So that was a really interesting use a case that I heard about. Yeah.
Yeah,
That you found. What did you guys use it for?
but Pradeep, did you want to say something real
I
quick?
just want to say a quick note. Jazz and I do have to hop off here right at the hour, so we got a couple of minutes to wrap up.
Yeah, I'm going to quickly share a really complex use case of how we use it in the public sector, and then and we can always follow up after with questions. But housing, which everybody's talking about, massive issue right now across any Western democracy. What we've done is we've used AI to train what a planner at City Hall would do. So here, just follow me here. You've got your address. You want to turn that house into a fourplex or sixplex. You've got an address and you want to build a carriage home. You want to build a deck, a basement suite, whatever you want to build. Traditionally, what do? You have the idea, you fill out an application, you go back and forth with City Hall until you get the application right. And then it takes maybe a year or two to get a permit to build a carriage home. Well, we don't have years or two to build homes. We need to build them now. So what we've done, and we've gone live with here, is we've trained AI on zoning bylaws, future land use, and the land systems. So you go in, you put your address in, and it's all secure corporate data. So we've done all the privacy work. You put your address in, it looks you up in the land system. It knows what you can and can't build based on your zoning bylaw. It reads and understands the length and width of your property. You say you want to build a carriage home, it'll give you a yes or no. If you say it's yes, because it knows it can, as you're filling out the application, AI is telling you when you're compliant and not compliant in real time. So you're not going back and forth with City Hall, you're going back and forth with AI for it to tell you, oh, you know what, that is a little too close to the fence, you got to shorten it out. Imagine now when you submit it, you don't go back and forth with your local, municipality or the province to get something. You've got a fuller application. If government's able to do that with AI, what does that mean that you could do with AI? So start thinking about it. I interact with my customers this way. I capture this information. Can I use AI to start to do things a little bit different? And so that's kind of the challenge that I always present to people. But if there's any follow-up questions or anything around AI, Pradeep and I are always available through Leslie here, and we can have follow-up conversations.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out afterwards. And we're right at 1 o'clock. So thank you, Jazz. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Hopefully that gave you a little taste, and we'll have more to come in the future. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.